Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the February 20th, 2024 quarterly meeting of the North Carolina Drivers Education Advisory Committee. This is a legislatively required committee as outlined in the North Carolina Drivers Educational Strategic Plan. I'm Dr. Leonard, Chair of the Drivers Education Advisory Committee, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Welcome committee members who are here this morning and those online. Also a huge welcome to on-site visitors and on-site listeners. Please be reminded that this meeting shall comply with public meeting laws, including the use of Robert Rules for Administration. Our agenda and other materials are available online through the DPI website on the Driver's Education section page. The meeting is also audio streamed through a link located at the bottom of the Driver's Education Advisory Committee page. Please be advised the meeting is recorded and will be made available via the YouTube app as soon as possible. At this time, we'd like to recognize Mr. Paul Deloy of the Division of Motor Vehicles. Is he here?
Present.
Great. Good to hear you online. Paul is on his 7th year serving on this committee, and for now he holds the record for the longest serving member in the history of this committee. We hope that you will continue your interactions and support as you transition to a new role at DMV. We are very excited to introduce Paul's replacement on the committee, Mr. Terry Fuller. And is he here?
Good morning. Yes, I am.
Good morning. I understand, Terry, you come to us with a tremendous amount of expertise. And if you would take a moment, putting you on the spot, if you would just tell us a brief bio of yourself and your thoughts on teen traffic safety education.
I've been with DMV a little under 20 years. I started out as an examiner, moved my way up to senior examiner and then into the training section, where I became, after that, assistant manager of the commercial driver's license unit. From there, I moved into a Western chief examiner covering the western half of North Carolina. I served that position for, I think, 5 or 6 years. Took a break from that and moved over to school bus and traffic safety under Paul's leadership. And then I got hoodooed into this role by Paul himself. Over the course of a while, he talked me into applying, and I was luckily selected. So I believe that driver education is a vital part of our teens' growth. And you have put me on the spot, but going from that, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we certainly welcome you. We are very pleased that you've now been appointed. Strongly encouraged to be a participant in this journey that we have in teen driving, and we are very fortunate to have you with all of your expertise. It sounds like you've had a bit of dabbling in all sorts of DMV activities, and I think all that will lend itself greatly to this advisory committee. So thank you so much. We welcome you and remind you that as you represent the North Carolina DMV, we are also interested and encourage you to involve your other DMV colleagues and share all their valuable information of licensing and traffic safety from your agency as you bring forth to this advisory council. So thank you again, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, and thank you for the warm welcome.
Paul, did you have any tidbits you'd like to add?
Well, Terry's going to be drinking from a fire hose for the foreseeable future, so I'm still here right next door to him, and I'm going to try to help him out and try not to lead him to the wolves.
Excellent. We appreciate that, and we thank you for all your expertise and your participation over the years. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. so now we'll review the ethics statement, as we do in every meeting. Committee members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this committee. Does any member of the committee know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Okay, none. The purpose of the North Carolina Drivers Education Advisory Committee shall be to advise and make recommendations to the State Board of Education through the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction on the implementation of the North Carolina Driver Education Strategic Plan and other issues related to driver education and traffic safety. Our mission, composed of experience and diverse perspectives, the Driver Education Advisory Committee provides research-based information and recommendations to the State Board of Education to implement and maintain the Driver Education Strategic Plan. The Advisory Committee advocates for certified professional teachers, highly qualified instruction, and up-to-date curricula to prepare each student to be informed and responsible drivers. At this time, I'll ask Cindy if she will do roll call, approval of the agenda, and the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Leonard. Dr. Cheryl Leonard.
Here, approve the minutes and the agenda.
Eddie Jordan. Craig Uzel. Dr. Brandy Gill.
Present.
Kevin Harrison. Sherry Vernelson.
Here, approve the agenda and minutes.
Terry Fuller.
Present.
Daniel Carter.
Here, approve both.
Tanya Faulkner.
Here.
Devin Tanner.
Here, and I approve both.
Marcia Kelly.
Marsha Kelly. And I'm present and I approve.
Bobby Dixon. Lieutenant Kimley Russell.
Present.
Chad Aharon.
Present and approve both.
Asim McGill. Bevan Curley.
Asim McGill, present and approve.
Thank you. Kella Hatcher.
Present and approve.
Ebony Baker.
Present and approve both.
And Owen Darrow.
Present and approve both.
Dr. Leonard, you have a quorum.
Excellent. And just for the formality, if I could entertain a motion for the agenda.
Oh, you've already done that. You've already done that. You did
Well,
both.
no, but I didn't want, everyone else did, but just to find them.
Yeah, you actually, when you call roll, they accepted both,
Okay.
just to save some time.
All right, all right. So our next piece of the agenda, I'll call on Carl to, is that which,
Yep.
to provide us an update with the DPI.
Thank you, Dr. Leonard. Good morning, and thanks to everybody for playing your part as the representing your agencies and the stakeholders under their wings, and for the local driver education leadership, as we know how busy you are, and a lot of you are online today, and thank you for being here. You all provide a quality education for our students in their districts and in your districts, and they play a valuable role in administration, as we know that some of you have positions from lead teachers all the way to upper leadership. So thank you for being here and taking this time out of your busy day. Our goal during these standing updates is to provide internal and external communications for a wide range of attendees and listeners, including new committee members. Terry, welcome. And local leadership, general public, and possibly your representatives. So we appreciate your patience, committee members, as some information may be repetitive, but the information that we share here is obviously to educate folks and bring everybody along, because we do have people who are rotating in and out, but to keep everybody up to date, and it doesn't hurt to hear things more than once for the educators in the room, right? Just want to cover a few things of items that we've seen upticks of in the last few months. The request, or I guess approval or information regarding standalone driver education programs. They are not acceptable for alternative classroom alternatives for either DMV commercial schools or for the DPI 30-hour programs. Unfortunately, these programs are readily available on the internet, and they will take parents' monies, but they are not acceptable in place of the 30 hours of classroom that we teach in our schools, in the commercial schools, or the DPI program. As far as services and support in this area, as you know, DPI's administrative funding has been significantly reduced, which impacts a number of things. I'll hit a few of the highlights here. Driver handbooks, which DPI is in charge with distribution. We're working on a process to allow the districts to arrange a time to pick those up. We're also looking at another possibility of some type of arrangement where the courier can deliver these, but we're still working on those, but we'll announce those to the LEAs that are eligible to receive those books. Districts are reminded we've only received 9,200 of these books, and this is basically a fraction of what we used to use. This reduction is due to a significant increase in the printing, and as my DMV friends have told me, a significant increase. In fact, it's about 300%. It is. About 300%. DMV has provided an alternative electronic copy of these books on their website, and you can find these on the DPI website, Administrative Manual, and the DMV website. The districts are asked to recycle these books as much as possible from this batch, and going forward, this strategy will provide books on a first-come, first-served basis, but we are, being that the cost of them has tripled, we're not real sure about when the next batch will be. And I'm looking at Tanya Faulkner, who's with DMV.
So we're trying to decide the bid out process. Got to bid out for 50,000 or more.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going through Persigen to try to get a vendor for it so we can get more this time. The pause is the proposed fee increases, so we don't want to print some and then come back in July 1st and have to print again.
I understand. Do you anticipate more next time, or?
Yes,
you do?
More.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We're wanting to at least get 50,000 handbooks on the next order.
They would be available for for DPI, or were they? That's the whole state.
And then we have to slate them out. Because
okay.
we were only been getting 20 to 25,000.
Right. What they cost? They're $1.01 a piece.
Yeah, 101.
Okay.
Per copy.
They were 33 cents a copy or something like that at one time.
25. To.
And since the pandemic, the cost of them went up tremendously.
Yes.
And from our conversations, drop shipping those to local schools would be an astronomical price, even more, right?
Right. So we've been coordinating to pick up at any DMV across the state since we,
That's for the general public, but for the schools still have to, you send them to here, DPI,
yes.
and we will distribute those using the list of requests.
But commercial schools have been coming to the local driver's office to
Right.
asking for a certain amount.
So the commercial schools that have contracts with our public schools, in some cases, they can help to reduce some of our shipping costs by collecting those from multiple schools. And in some cases, they may be, the school district may request us to send to them. So everybody's not the same, and we try to appease the request as much as possible, but being that we have been reduced in funds, we've having to rethink in our strategy and create another strategy for these. But thank you for your partnership, and I think that Mr. Tanner, am I permitted to let him speak?
Thank you, Dr. Leonard and Carl. I just had a quick question, and maybe Tanya can shed some light on this. At our last meeting, there was the possibility or idea had been brought up that DMV approved or may have approved permission for LEAs to print those things. So we have a printing office that could reproduce that book. Do we have does my LEA have permission to produce them themselves if I give them a copy and say, make this?
And if I'm understanding correctly, I know we were supposed to do a MOA with that.
Yes.
And if that is completed, I know that was open for agreement to do it.
We are in the process of doing that. We've had some leadership changes, and I'm so excited that that's a nice segue into introducing leadership here at DPI. We've got Dr. Lynn Harvey, who is my immediate Senior Director of District Operations, and she's become a permanent fixture here at the table with us. And we're very excited here to introduce Dr. Jeremy Gibbs, who is now the Deputy State Superintendent.
A
So,
semi-permanent fixture. Maybe.
but we're very excited to have him here, and he is going to share with us a little bit and join the conversation a little bit later on. So we look forward to that. So, but yes, I will have to take the fault on that, but we'll get that done. But once that's done, then districts will be able to print those off.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Also, the printing and distribution of the driver eligibility certificates is required by statute to be used or to be printed and distributed using driver education funds. Unfortunately, when the bill was written, there wasn't enough room left in that for that. So we're working on, maybe I shouldn't have said that in front of the Deputy Superintendent, we're working on a permanent solution to shipping and mailing those. But in the meantime, the districts are receiving those. We've got a system worked out. Maybe I shouldn't use this, say this either, but we're actually going back and tapping some of our resources here in the building. And one of them is here today. Cindy Taylor is running the PowerPoint for us. We borrowed her today to help out in an emergency. So thank you, Cindy. I really miss you.
We all miss you. Thank you. We miss you around this table. Thank you.
Cindy made things happen. So the printing of these are required by statute, and these are being mailed and shipped to districts. On the DPI website, there are links for all schools to order these, and that the public and charter schools, PSUs and charter schools, they order those from one link, and the private schools order these from the Division of Non-Public Education, as well as the private schools and home schools. Federal schools can get these from their the LEA where they are located. I do want to say something here real quickly. I'm sure that Dr. Gibbs will appreciate this, is that we've had a uptick in students who decide to homeschool and transfer out, and they don't realize that they should have notified their LEA or the school that they left until they get the driver education. And then when they need a driver eligibility certificate, there's no place for them to go. And we redirect those to non-public education. And Mr. Dixon, are you on, was Mr. Dixon here? Not today, okay. I know that between our offices here and there, it's kind of like a partnership between us and DMV, is that we work closely with them, and it's just a big surprise for students when they find out that they have been homeschooling for quite a period of time and they don't have access to these forms. And there's a 4-month delay, or there's a 4-month waiting period before they can receive those forms. So it's caused quite a bit of angst between the parents and our two divisions, or two agencies. Moving forward here. The most notable impacts of the reduction in funding was the STEP program. Cindy, can you reach over and, never mind, I'm there, sorry. The STEP program, we're remaining hopeful that there will be a technical correction to restore the administrative funding to restart the program. But this program is one of 2 teacher certification programs in the state. Right now, we're redirecting all of our questions, comments, or requests for teacher certification to the DMV. And thank heaven for Terry and Paul, who've been over there receiving these. The fall cohort, we found unfortunately, the program, the funding reduction caused us to stop the program a few weeks short of the 59 teacher candidates that were in the meeting. We did find out that the teacher trainers volunteered their time to complete that cohort. So that cohort finished and they're out doing their practicums, and some of them have already been licensed to teach locally, so we're glad that happened. These spring and summer cohorts have been canceled, and we will be making a decision on the fall cohort about the 1st of May. It takes quite a bit of planning and the coordination between the districts and DPI to make these happen, so hopefully something may happen. If not, then we will cast all of our eggs in the DMV basket. So let us know if we can help. There's one other area that I'd like to discuss is the data analytics that we collect. Normally, this time of year we would have the mid-year reports to share with you all. This data kind of gives us an idea of districts who are on target to meet their the bar of about 80% of their students for each year. So with the quarterly reports, there's about 145,000 students in the program. Mid-year, we're usually looking at about half of those. Unfortunately, with the absence of staff keeping on and reminding our districts, only about 42% of our districts have reported as of that were due on January the 15th. We're hoping to encourage those folks to get their reports in, and then we can start analyzing that data to have an idea of who we need to assist in the enrollment of their students. Next slide now, Cindy. Also, the collection vehicle that we have collects about 5,900 elements of data. And as you see on this chart, the average over the last 4 years has been about 77%. Obviously, the first 2 years we were impacted by a pandemic. you'll see there that we went from 60% of classroom the year of the pandemic. We lost 4 months that year. And then in 21-22, we rebounded to 93%. And that was actually above the normal average of about 80 to 85% of the students. You'll also see that the statistics go up about the same way and with the behind the wheel. Unfortunately, you'll see that behind the wheel is always a little bit lower than the classroom. We can speculate as to why that could be. We have a teacher shortage, and we have teachers that did not come back from the pandemic, and then we have students who get a little impatient and are looking for an alternative way to receive behind the wheel, and they go to commercial schools. So that's how we account for that. We also have the ability to look and determine the average cost per student. As you know, that the cost per student for the LEs out there is about $208 this year, but on average, due to the number of teens that do not get served, our average cost of students probably about $236, and this is before the fees. So this is the type of data that we will take a look at, and it helps us to provide oversight and support to our districts. As far as reversions in the last column out there, you'll see that we don't have the numbers from the 19 and 20 school year, but we are going to get those and add those to our list. But you'll see that the reversions during the first year of COVID, we reverted about $3 million. And then we've progressively gone down in 21-22, it's $2.4 million. And then last year, we cut that almost in half. Well, it was about half to $1.3 million. There's obviously a need for us to look at the allotment policy and make some adjustments to that accordingly. So that gives you kind of an idea of what we are, the data that we collect, just this is a small piece of it that we collect and to help to serve our districts. By the way, if I'm talking too fast, I know exactly what I'm saying, but you may not understand what I'm talking about, so please slow me down if we need to ask any questions. The last subject I want to talk about are other options that students may have. This is also included in the list of questions that we've received at the district or at the agency. What are alternative methods of receiving driver education? Well, actually, there's only two methods in North Carolina, or two options. That's the DMV commercial schools, or at DPI, or the state or the PSUs that provide a program for all students, public, charter, private, home, federal schools. Online courses are not acceptable. As I said before, the standards for those, to provide oversight for those, my experience has been, is tremendous. It requires a whole new skill set to be able to oversee those and make sure that the standards are met and that students are actually receiving what they're asking for. I also belong to the American Driver and Traffic Safety Education Association, and we have a state administrators work group. And recently, there was a poll that went out, and there was 25 states that responded to this on the states who accept parent-taught driver education. And this probably could be a presentation in itself. I know Dr. Nina Saint with Texas Education Agency, and she provided me this report and some insight onto when they did this study some years ago. But of the 25 states that have responded, I think there's 8 here that have stated that they do allow parent-taught. Texas, Iowa, Wyoming, Kentucky, West Virginia, Georgia, Connecticut, and Minnesota. As I said before, the Texas study produced some, what you would expect, the statistics. Obviously, the parents and students thought that it was, the cost was very good. It gave the students comfort and individualized instruction. But the disadvantages of the parent-taught program before and after GDL, Dr. Leonard, all teens reduced crashes and fatalities. We found that all students reduced crashes and fatalities. However, the parent-taught students didn't decrease as much as the ones that were taught in professional schools. They also committed more traffic offenses, and the convictions and crashes were substantially fewer with all novice drivers, as I've said there. So this, like I said, this may be a topic that we want to take a look at for, obviously, to provide some education for folks as we move forward. Does anyone have any questions, comments?
What's the name of the study?
It was the 2007 Texas Transportation Institution, and it's the Texas A&M University System. And I can send you a link to it.
That'd be curious.
Okay.
Carl,
With that, yes.
do you know how widely known the information about the web-based programs are for parents? Are they not aware that they're not allowable or recognized as such?
I'm not going to defer to my DMV partner here, but at the same time, I'm going to invite you into this conversation. My experience prior to coming to DPI, actually, I worked 10 years with a provider of online driver education, and it started back in the early 2000s, but obviously it became more popular during the pandemic. There is no single organization that oversees these. They can adhere to the national standards provided by ANSTI. They can. However, it doesn't take it. They just have to have a business license in a particular state to operate, to open a business if they're in that state. However, there are online companies that offer the online driver education across state lines. So there are companies that state that they have North Carolina standards and adhere to North Carolina statutes, but from what I've seen, this is not true. And it's unfortunate that parents find themselves in a position where they have not met the compliance issues. No, they're not aware.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So with that, are there any other questions for me or about the information I've shared? If not.
Hey, Carl, it's Chad. I don't think there's questions, and obviously you and I talk, and I talked to Buddy, and I talked to all some people who are also running, private companies or commercial companies as well. I think we're all on the same page, no matter what. If we're in-house, if we're not in-house, and so forth. But one thing I want, hopefully, people to start considering is that, as the gentleman said earlier, driver's ed is so important, especially in today's times. I can't speak for other counties, but here in Alamance, we're having more and more kids have panic attacks, getting nervous about driving, offering more hours if needed. And the DMV is working so hard. I deal with the DMV with CDL classes, bus classes, and so forth. And they're short-staffed like we are. And the fact that recently one of my guys wanted to take a course in Greensboro, I think there was like 7 spots left when Wendy House sent out the email. Obviously not the DMV's fault, just short-staffed. I think it's so important that we all realize, and this is my concern, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, that if we don't have teachers, parents complain. No matter if it's Wake County, Alamance County, Mecklenburg County, And my concern is that parents are complaining, and this goes above us. And instead of a solution to fix the problems, I worry about years ago when they just said, well, you know, we're driver's ed, we're just concerned about driver's ed. And I don't want that to happen, especially nowadays with these kids needing it. So I hope people are really lobbying around here and telling and explaining how important that STEP program is and the funding in regards to the STEP program. Because like I said, I know I harp on that program a lot, but it's just an amazing program that actually leads to teacher certification. And the whole mentoring, you know, for 54 hours is so beneficial. I've seen a big difference in regards to people going through that program. So, like I said, to keep driver's ed continuing, we need instructors. And if we look at these numbers in certain counties, including mine as well, I mean, we can do a lot more positive damage and get a lot more kids driven if we are fully staffed, you know, as a state. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for your support, Chad. And yes, we have had a lot of conversation about this, and I know that you've put quite a number of teachers through the program. We are, something I did not mention is maybe stealing my thunder for a later introduction here, but just in the past month or so, we have received, the agency has received inquiries from the General Assembly that have been quite encouraging to at least I think that they're becoming aware of the importance of the program. That their local constituents have been contacting them, and they've asked us a number of questions. So we're hoping that would be a positive thing. So, but thank you for your support and what you've been advocating for, and others as well.
Carl, we might also take this opportunity to celebrate the professional character of those 3 teachers who were committed to that STEP program such that when it did come to an abrupt closure, they volunteered. They were not compensated. They volunteered to keep that cohort going so those participants could graduate and become certified. That speaks volumes to the professional character of the driver ed profession.
Yes, and because Cindy's here in the room, Cindy's right at the top of that list as well. But we had it was a fun group. We were able to get a lot accomplished in a short period of time, and we created the program before 2 of those teacher trainers came in. But Reggie Flythe, who was the section chief here at DPI before I came here, Reggie headed up that group. And then there was Michelle Roberts of the western end of the state. I have to tout our western end of the state folks up in the Asheville area, Weaverville. And then there was also Mike Jones. Mike Jones is a former past Teacher of the Year for the National Teacher of the Year. So we had some very, very good instructors here, teacher trainers. Reggie Flythe actually worked with ANSTI and does assessments of other states, providing them insight and providing them guidance on creating their own teacher programs and updating their programs. So we were lucky to have some very, very, very good people. And I'll keep bragging about Cindy. Cindy was the chief administrator for arguably one of the largest driving schools in the country. And so I think y'all had about 200 teachers and folks between two large counties, Wake and Mecklenburg. So we had a very, very talented staff. Everybody was cross-trained, multiple skill sets. I learned some things from her KSAs. But they were it was a lot of fun to work with. And Dr. Amelia Worcester Davis came to us later on to organize that. And she provided the curriculum, as well as Angie Stevenson, who was with us during the time that we created the STEP program. So we've had a very good group of people with experience in what they do and just love working with each other. So it was a lot of fun to do that. Hopefully we call it the Cadillac that sits in the driveway. We're waiting to drive that thing one day. But anyway, are there any other questions, comments? Mr. Tanner?
Thank you. I just want to piggyback on what Chad was talking about. If I have the numbers correct from you, there's somewhere over 300, the need for somewhere over 300 new teachers, and those 2 cohorts that were canceled represented 150 of those teachers. And that's how important that STEP program is to our state, especially right now with the lack of instructors that we have.
Yes, I just, in looking at the data that I showed you a little bit earlier, we hit a peak there at 93% of the students in 21, 22, I think it was, and then we had a little dip this past year. I'm hoping that that's not a trend. I'm hoping that that was just because we ran out of students locally and weren't teaching like some. There were some districts that were teaching as much as 120% of their ADM. So we knew that they had taken steps and created strategies to reduce those backlogs as much as possible. In many districts, there is no backlog. The students finish on Friday and they start driving on Monday. But there are some that still are just a little bit behind because of the number of teachers that they lost during the pandemic, and it's kind of regional. We haven't been able to put that together yet, but hopefully we'll be able to gather that data and we'll be able to see where the extreme shortages are. Obviously, a large district is, it's interesting. Large districts can be cannot show the impacts of teacher shortages sometimes, and sometimes they show it even more. And then obviously, if you have a small district that has one teacher and they lose that one teacher, like we've had a county in the western end of the state that lost a teacher, then obviously their kids went without driver education for at least a year, a couple of years ago. So anyway, we are in a position where we do need new teachers, and we need to be able to sustain the loss of those through retirement and just general attrition. Any other questions? Thanks, Devin. With that, Chair Leonard, I will yield back.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Only 10 minutes overtime.
That's all right, that's all right. There are no more questions for Carl, then we're gonna move on. Chad, do you have any report out for the subcommittees?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not have anything. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Now, and as we've been talking about data collection and how important those figures are to help us navigate through the processes we are here today, I'm going to introduce Daniel Carter, who is with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, Safety and Mobility section, who is our resident expert, and I do mean expert on data collection. So much that this morning he decides in his infinite wisdom, I've got some questions in my head, so he calculates and puts all this stuff on a nice spreadsheet to provide today, and we really do thank you for that, along with all the other data that we get collected to help us drive our points home. So thank you, and look forward to hearing you.
Great. All right, good morning. So I work in traffic safety at CDOT, so I'm in the crash data all day, every day, and doing various analyses and such for that. Typically, we're looking at, places on the road, infrastructure, signs, signals, markings, that kind of thing that we can improve. Less commonly looking at sort of the person side of things. That's the purview of other groups, typically, DMV and others that do that sort of work. But I do have access to all of the data, so I kind of use that to pull together and answer some questions that I was sent from some of the folks at the front of the room, some questions I came up with in my own head there. And so I've got, I'm gonna kill you with data this morning. I hope you're ready for that. So deep breath, but I wanna lay out some kind of just to give you some of the front end stuff of what you're gonna see here. This is all coming from our statewide crash database where all the law enforcement agencies submit their crash data to. It's what we pull on. I am including 2023 numbers here. They are just barely preliminary because we haven't quite finalized December yet. So what you're gonna see should be understood to be preliminary. In all honesty, it's not gonna change that much as we get the rest of December's crashes in there. This is crashes on public roads. We typically don't look at parking lot or private road crashes. That's just kind of our, what we're talking about, and I think generally what we're talking about here too. Probably no shocker, teen driver I defined as 15 to 19 years old. I hope we all agree on that. And then a lot of the stats I'm going to present, I'm really couching them in terms of crashes that involved a teen driver. So we're talking about the crash as an event, as an incident. And so when I say that, I'm talking about there was a teen driver involved as a party in the crash, just simply speaking. Not specifying that that teen driver was at fault or not at fault, just simply there was a teen driver in the crash. So just so you understand kind of what I'm talking about with that. All right, front end matter out of the way, go on. So again, this is teen driver involved crashes involving teen driver. Top line without the markings is just tracking sort of the total number of crashes that involved a teen driver through the years. I'm running this one looking back 10 years. Of course, you notice a big drop there in 2020. That mirrors a lot of what we saw in general, not just state teen drivers. All the crashes went down in 2020. However, and this is similar to our total crash picture. If you look at the bottom line, which is the fatalities. Again, fatalities resulting from a crash that involved a teen driver. There was no dip in 2020, and that mirrors what we saw statewide with all drivers, that the fatalities actually continued to rise, which is a sad story, and we're trying to combat that. But looking at those two bottom lines with the markers, the lower one is the fatalities resulting from these crashes. The upper one is the serious injuries. We also call them the A-level injuries. It's essentially the most serious injury you can have that's not fatal. So we kind of track both of those together, and a lot of what I'll be presenting is going to look at kind of putting both of those together, fatals and serious injuries. If you click once, please, on that. One thing I noticed is that as we look at the change just from 2022 to 23, we saw that the crashes involving teen drivers went up 2% just in total, but they did seem to be more serious because the fatalities ticked up 10% and the serious injuries went up 14%. So that kind of stuck out at me that for whatever reason, these crashes seem to be more serious when we look just even from last year to this year. Crash it being what it is, that could go back down next year. So we see some fluctuations sometimes, but it does seem to be a bit of a trend, even if you look back a few years, a bit of a trend going up in terms of the just general severity of these crashes. So I just want to point that out. All right, next slide. A lot of what I'm presenting today is going to be more sort of just the crash data. I don't have a lot of denominators in there of sort of what I would call the exposure, the population, registered drivers, vehicle miles driven. I don't have a lot of the information pulled in here, but I did want to kind of flash this up there. Some numbers that took me a ridiculously long time to pull together, honestly. The North Carolina population, you would think that'd be easy to find, but it is really difficult. The more bluish line, and I'm somewhat colorblind, so I'm going to be referring to things like bluish and reddish because I can't really tell. But the more bluish line, the lower one, is the total population of the state. That's mapped on the left side axis there. And then the more reddish line is the 15 to 19-year-old population, not drivers, just who we have in the state. That's included in the census. Just interesting to kind of see how that fluctuated. It was kind of rising and then more leveled off, kind of that 2019 to 2020 time period. And then both of them are ticking up even faster. And if you follow the headlines, you know that North Carolina is one of the top growing states right now. We're kind of, us and Texas and Florida and others, are getting more people. And it looks like maybe even proportionally slightly more in the younger age range. So that's just more of a backdrop to some of the numbers here. All right, next slide. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, for a number of these different metrics, kind of break it down proportionally. Out of 100% of the crashes, what's the split on a few of these kind of attributes? So if the first one I've got here is urban versus rural. So we're just talking about, kind of basically in a city versus not, out in, kind of out in the county somewhere. By and large, the teen driver involved fatal and injury crashes are more rural, around 63 or so percent kind of on average, which is also what we see from a total driving standpoint. This doesn't differ largely from what we see just from the general crash percentage, but this is the kind of thing that I think does inform maybe some thinking, some efforts. Where do you focus? What do you consider in terms of when you're thinking about driver's education? We do have a lot of rural crashes, and that was something that stuck out to me. All right, next slide. Oh, and back up one slide if you would. I don't even know who's changing slides. All right, Cindy, are you changing slides? Okay, I was looking this way. One of the things I was doing this also was to sort of track the trend. I was just curious to see if the trends are changing over time. This one, not really. There seemed to be sort of a slight rise in things in the 2018 time period, but then it kind of leveled back out. So I don't see any real trend here, but just in general, that's kind of how it splits out. All right, next slide. Weather. Oh, my colors went a little crazy on the translation from mine to yours there. So hopefully you can still tell the differences here. But the weather, so this is just kind of the weather of the crash event itself. Predominantly clear, that's the largest brackets there, with a maybe slight increase in clear weather crashes as we get sort of in the later years. Not a significant trend, but most are happening in the clear weather. Again, something that mirrors the total crash population, what we see there. Next slide. All right. This one is for the road condition. Was it wet or dry road, just generally speaking? And predominantly dry, as you can see obviously there, with maybe a slight increase toward more happening in dry weather. So that's a bit of the same story, a little bit more in the clear weather, a little bit more in the dry weather. What does that mean about what teens are doing with their driving? I don't know if I could say exactly because I don't have that denominator, how many teens are driving out there, but this is at least a trend we can see, and generally speaking, you can kind of see how it breaks out, wet versus dry, predominantly dry. All right. I looked at the light condition of the crash event. Was it daylight, which is the yellow? I try to make it a little bit obvious here. Yellow is daylight, black is dark, not lighted roads, and so you can kind of see those splits there. The largest piece being the daylight crashes, but there is a significant portion of crashes that are happening in dark, not lighted, which is a lot of our rural roads don't have street lighting, obviously. I didn't really see a big trend here. This is just kind of a general split out, but I don't see it sort of increasing or decreasing in the current years. Even when I don't see things, I feel like it's important to put it up there so you know I looked at it and didn't see anything particular. All right, next slide. Looking at the speed limit of the roads where these occurred, and this is the speed limit that's recorded by the officer, which is sort of all of these things are information that was recorded by the officer. Some of them are typically more accurate, some less. This one is probably about in the middle, I would say, in terms of reliability. But basically we can see kind of, I've grouped things in terms of that middle, more reddish section is the 35 to 50, so a bit more of your kind of city streets. Light gray being the 55 and over, so more of those rural roads, and pretty even split between the two of them. So quite a number of crashes happening out on those faster rural roads. And these are the fatal and serious injury crashes again. Intersection related, this probably is less interesting to you, more interesting to my group, but just kind of in general, are these happening at intersections or not? Slight majority that they're not happening at intersections, but really seeing both. We're seeing both, people running off the road on some curve, not near an intersection, as well as getting in some kind of serious crash at an intersection. So I don't think I would say to focus on one or the other. Both seem to be at play here. Next slide. Okay, I wanted to mention one thing, and yeah, text got all crazy there. So we are in the midst of doing the next version of our strategic highway safety plan. This is something that is spearheaded by NCDOT, but a lot of parties are involved in from all different angles. It's not just the infrastructure. And Chris Oliver, who's one of our staff, who's kind of heading that up, said, yes, we've got an emphasis area on young drivers. The emphasis area is kind of some of the major categories that the safety plan addresses. And more participants are needed. So I just thought I'd throw this out there to y'all, to anybody on the line here. They are having working group meetings on this topic area, and the idea is to develop ideas for strategies to address teen driver crashes. Typically one of them is driver's ed, but there are other ones as well. So if anyone's interested in being part of that, they do want more participants from all different angles, all different backgrounds, in particular champions. As they move toward the conclusion of that plan, they'll need champions who are going to actually take an active role in trying to implement these strategies to decrease teen driver crashes. So strategies, examples would be reinforced driver's ed curriculum, there's one there. Looking at research to understand contributing factors in young driver crashes, so that's kind of more on that research end of things. And then the last bullet example, just educating either public or agencies on safe driving habits for teen drivers. So those are some examples. If you were to join the working group, you might come up with other examples of other things that could be done for safety strategies. So I want to throw that out there. If you're interested in being involved, let me know, contact me. Do you have the second presentation I gave? I had a few more slides in that one.
Yes.
The ones I ran this morning because I was curious and almost made me late for the meeting.
Can you get to Earl's? That's the first present.
Yep. The one I sent this morning was the second one. That's what I was asking you about.
Can you get to that?
Is it on my flash drive that we're on?
If it takes too long, it's not a big deal.
Yes.
I can kind of recap it.
Can I? Let's see here.
That's fine. We can do it without the visuals. I can kind of just tell you what I found. I was particularly interested, so I did a lot of that. Was more looking at kind of the where and when sort of questions. I wanted to delve a little bit more into the who, because I thought that would be interesting to this group. In particular, I was thinking, okay, I've got 15 to 19-year-olds. Do we see a change in the trend of the ages involved in the teen driver crashes? You know, we've been looking at that as a group. Is there any kind of age change? And I won't hold my phone up to show you the graph here, but there did seem to be kind of a decrease in the older, the 19, and an increase in the younger, particularly 16-year-olds in crashes. So 16 and 17-year-olds were kind of increasing in terms of the percentage that they were involved in these crashes. So seeing a few more of the younger ones out there, maybe getting licenses, being part of the driving population. I looked at, breakdown that by age. I looked at the ethnicity. There did seem to be, in the past 5 years, a decrease in white ethnicity, and then an increase in Hispanic. So it went from, it was kind of trading off a few percentage points there. So that seemed to be a trend that was, it seemed pretty noticeable, kind of a continual decrease in white percentage, a slight increase in Hispanic percentage all the way to 2023. So that was something that kind of stuck out at me. And then the last one I looked at was gender, male versus female here, and as recorded on the crash form, it looks like we're seeing an increase in the percentage of male drivers involved in the teen male drivers involved in serious injury crashes. So that was just a couple other trends that I looked at. Pulled those out this morning. So. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Daniel?
Sorry, we just found it.
I know I'd like to make a couple comments. One, all this data is extremely interesting. We'll make sure that folks get this.
Yeah, it's a lot to kind of absorb all of them, but please distribute it as you like to.
Exactly. And I think as a representative through Governor's Highway Safety, we're always looking at data like this and certainly identifying the age group that we need to target. And you referenced the strategic highway plan and the committee and being a champion. And there's a lot of things that just by default, Governor's Highway Safety takes care of the messaging across the board. And we're a champion in much of that. And we sat yesterday and we were talking, and one of the statements that was made was how could, if you reference the Chapel Hill most recent teen that died in the car crash, and then there are 10 others that are being held responsible as well, how did those 11 not get the message to not drink and drive? And so I think the importance not only of this advisory committee, but the importance of every single person here today and online has a mission and has a purpose in their agency to be able to help address these numbers and how we need to be part of that strategic highway plan. And whether you connect with Daniel, myself, or Carl, to get on that committee so that we can start pushing our agenda, start pushing our purpose of what we do in our individual programs, because these fatalities and serious injuries, as you noted, even though you talk about how some of it not a significant increase, but they are increasing. I mean, even if they're holding steady, that's too much of a steady for all of us and for those on the road. And when you look at some of the conversations we've had previously about the pulling away of some of our programs and how important those programs are going to be needed in order to educate these teens, because right now you're looking at a trend of the general population and 19 to 25 to 30-year-olds increasing at the same rate. And that's, you know, for someone that drives an hour and a half to work and an hour and a half back home, that's a little bit unnerving to, and certainly when you're looking at speeds, because I don't know if our highway patrol representatives on here, but we always laugh and think, is there really a speed limit out there? Is there really? So, anyway, we are all concerned, and this data really shows the point as to why we all need to be represented to, not only here, but that strategic highway safety program as well. So, thank you very much.
Dr. Leonard, if I may, one of the first acts that I had when coming to DPI in 2016 was participating in a symposium for occupant protection devices. And there was a gentleman who I coincidentally have become pretty good friends with from the state of Oregon, was chairing that committee. And for several days throughout the week, there were quite a number, I mean, it had to be way over 50 people that were taking part of this symposium. And he said on the last day during his assessment, he said, North Carolina has an abundance of traffic safety agencies and entities. He said the problem is they don't talk to each other. They don't talk to each other. They work in silos. And that was one of the first things that I encountered when I came here. I was able to work with the strategic plan for highway safety several times. I've really enjoyed that group, and obviously, and all the educators who are on the line, all the driver education educators on the line, they know that there's 4 E's, and education is one of them, and that we're 25%. And I look forward to continuing to work with DOT in this area, and that we were working feverishly into a position to where we could add curriculum and update curriculum and provide professional development for teachers to keep our teachers up to date instead of waiting for the second, third year down the road when we have new data. So we were looking forward to that, and I also so I look forward to continuing playing that role in of being part of the 4 E's there, and as we update the strategic plan again. Obviously, it's been a good time for us. So thank you very much. So actually, lastly, it's always great, little point of personal privilege here. It's always great when your manager asks you for a special report and you're able to get it to her. So, Dr. Harvey.
Talk about the ordinance.
So Dr. Harvey had said, can you ask that gentleman, Mr. Carter, to bring some information on weather-related crashes? And I said, I think I can do that. So thank you very much for providing that for us. And and as always, we look forward to those. If I could recommend, I think we should have special presentations from each of our folks from time to time, just to kind of give us an idea of what the stakeholders that we're serving.
Yes, and Carl and I had talked about that recently, about how each one of us can help identify and really educate all of us about what it is you do. I think most of us have a little bit of understanding of what folks do, but I think by having presentations like this and really put in maybe an after action piece to this as to how we can communicate with our partners here. And I need to address this piece that Carl said about how we all work in silos. I think personally, I'm all about partnerships, and I think that one of the things that Governor's Highway Safety does in order to get our message across is to partner with a number of people. And it's just always not only interesting but entertaining to see what people can bring to the table and how everything interlaps. And one of the things that we've learned with the strategic planning group is when you become a champion and you're on these subcommittees, they are lively and they are entertaining and they are wide awakening on what different groups can do. So when we hear all of that, we think, gosh, why don't you come and speak to our group and tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are. And sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we won't, but I think we all come to a happy medium. So whoever would like to volunteer for our next lead in presentations, we'll certainly love for you to call us, email us, drop us a line, and let us know what you'd like to talk about. And I sit here and see a beautiful smile over here with DMV, thinking they're going to be our next one to offer that up. So I won't put you on the spot.
They're our partners, obviously.
Yes,
They're
they are,
nice.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
and if I may, I love numbers, I love the statistics. So while you were going through that, of course, things is popping in my head. Okay, why would Hispanics go up a little? But that just goes to how we're interconnected. Like if we're doing the knowledge exam on a certain, machine at the DMV, and we gotta expand our language base.
yes.
And when we're having the road testing and the skill testing and we're trying to retain and attract bilingual driver license examiners, it is all interconnected. Because I'm thinking, okay, this ties into adding languages to our knowledge testing. Bilingual skill sets as a driver license examiner, it is all interconnected. Even the age group, we look at that differently with graduating licenses 1, 2, and 3. So I'm interested in providing that because it will, again, make sense to all of our agencies and see how it connects and how we can improve it. We don't have probably access to and we might, the numbers like far as affluent versus people that's impoverished. Sometimes I wonder those numbers going up because they are able to afford a car and they driving a particular type of car. And in the rural areas, for us to speed in that type of car. Just a lot of stuff like that. I'm always curious when I am looking at the graduation license numbers. So I
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Absolutely, and it's a good point, because you think that, you hear the philosophy where teens that are within that age group that are in the urban areas are not wanting to drive as much to get their license. They want the Uber and the ride share and et cetera, whereas in the rural area, that's not only sometimes not affordable, but not accessible to them. So you would wonder, is that why the crashes, because more of them are driving in the rural areas as opposed to the urban areas? So, but who knows? I for one am not a number person. I'm on the other end of the spectrum of, kumbaya, that kind of thing. But I will say, I applaud those that do it, and I am so glad that there are those that do it. And knowing that Daniel is right down the hall, literally, from me, I love that. So
Over there, beautiful Greenfield Parkway.
it
That's
is,
right.
it is.
I got a question. So this is so timely. Last night I was driving to place and there was a wreck that had happened. It was fairly small streets, but I stopped anyways just to see what was going on. Turns out actually one of the parties, party that turned out to be at fault was a couple daughters of a friend of mine, and so I kind of stayed with them. But it was very timely to be helping a teen-involved crash the day before this meeting. And it was interesting because the type of crash what happened was exactly what happened with my daughter a year ago when she totaled our van. Waiting to turn left, seeing someone approach from the left, assuming that person's going to turn right. No, they're going through and they pulled out in front of the person, got plowed into the side. Same thing that happened to these girls last night. It got me thinking, this is a question for those of you who do driver's ed, which is not my area. How much does looking at the kind of crashes and what happened and what led to the crashes that are involved with the teen drivers, particularly the ones where they're at fault, how much does that affect how you do the education, either in the classroom or in the driving portion? Is there that kind of interaction feedback?
There actually is. I'm the LEA driver ed coordinator for Wake County. We try to customize our driver ed in Wake County for Wake County, which has a lot of outlying rural areas as we grow outward. I have found, and I heard your question, I have found that in our county, and in talking with UNC traffic research, that a lot of those rural area crashes are simply caused by speed. It's a little bit more wide open and you know, things like that. But yeah, we had I'm trying to remember the research a while ago, but we actually had I found a site where it had, you know, every police like all of the crashes at each intersection within the major intersections within our urban area and out into the rural areas, because intersections are huge for crashes and what type of crashes were happening at those intersections. And I presented that to all of our instructors. That was some time ago, so I'm sure that has changed. I think that was pre-pandemic, probably close to pre-pandemic, but and I'm sure that trends have changed since then. But yeah, that is something that we try to curtail or make our education customized to where we're actually at. So at least I do.
And it probably hasn't changed, because that's why we have four-way stops now at every intersection it appears.
Well, and I've noticed that with the migration of more people from the north, and they just have different driving habits from New York or Pennsylvania or wherever they come from, bigger cities. And so, I mean, even I'm out there on I-40 or whatever heading south to the beach, and I mean, I'm going 5 over the speed limit. I shouldn't say that, but I'm going 5 over, but these people are flying or right on my tailpipe now, more so than I'd seen, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Look, us Yankees, it's a very fast-paced environment, so we have to go fast.
I knew that was gonna happen.
We've established the cause now. Okay.
Didn't mean to get into a fight here.
Yeah, now.
I'm picking on you.
Oh, very good, very good. All right, well, thank you again, Dean, for that. So we'll go to the old business now, and I'll call on Carl to talk about the progress of the position statement.
Thank you, Dr. Leonard. As a DPI, as serving as staff to this committee, it was decided at the last meeting that you would create a special work group, and DPI sent out a invite. We had a number of folks to show up at that meeting, and unfortunately, here's another plug for Cindy. I was keeping the minutes, and I forgot to take the roll of who was there. So I don't know who was there, but there were more people there that signed up, and I was appreciative of the participation in that. Realizing that we had a very quick timeline when you started looking at the process in which this had to go through to get to the desired point in time to get this to what we felt, or what you all felt like at the time was to get it to State Board of Education. It needed to go through a series of checkpoints, milestones to get there. The special work group met on the 12th of December, and they discussed a number of things, which it just disappeared off my screen. And they provided elements that should be considered in the position statement. The goal was to submit it to the State Board of Education to ask for their support for a technical correction to reinstate the driver education administrative funding. And the other dates, we had asked for a input on a draft that was submitted to everyone in that group, and there was a fairly significant number of people who participated in that. And then as we went forward, again, we sent out another draft. The draft started with about a half a page, and now it has grown to 2.5 pages. Realizing that that's probably too much for a position statement, but at least this was not considering that it's going to the State Board of Education, excuse me, not going to the General Assembly, it's going to go to the State Board of Education. And there was a significant amount of background information that needed to be provided for them, for the State Board of Education. On the 6th, we received the final notations or recommendations to the letter or to the document, And then on the 2nd and the 6th of February, I had a chance to meet with leadership at DPI, Dr. Harvey and Dr. Gibbs. We had 2 lengthy conversations regarding this. I'll come back to that in just a second. On the 20th, obviously here today, Dr. Gibbs is here to hear directly from you all. Not that he doesn't trust me, but directly from you all, some ideas and get a bigger idea of the program, of what the needs are. Next Tuesday, the PowerPoints and support materials will do the State Board of Education, and then, this Friday. And then the committee call for this is on next Tuesday, and then the State Board meeting is on the 5th. But as you see the little check marks there, we are today, right on time. So anyway, what I'd like to do here is I would like to introduce Dr. Lynn Harvey, who can introduce our other fearless leader.
My great pleasure, and I'm privileged to have gotten to know many of you around this table and appreciate the fact that Carl identifies me as a permanent fixture around the table. That gives me great comfort. I look forward to that. But I too want to thank you all for your leadership and your innovation and your willingness to come to this convening regularly to discuss what's in the best interest of children. As I find myself in this room, I'm often reminded that education changes lives. We know that. Driver education not only changes lives, it can save lives. And so we have tremendous responsibilities as we look at how we better prepare our students to be responsible drivers in the future for all of us. We all benefit. And we certainly have a great champion joining us today as we introduce Dr. Gibbs to our team. First, let me tell you that he is himself a distinguished driver, driving about 4.5 hours per visit coming into DPI as he comes into the office. He actually lives in Transylvania County and commutes to the agency, so he has an opportunity to observe the finest, I'm confident, in driver safety in this process.
On I-40 from exit 46 to 289 this morning alone. And yes, there are some concerning moments.
Quite confident.
As you go along there, but I did fine. I don't know that some of the other people, there were some issues.
So you see the need for driver education, don't you?
There's a clear and present need for thorough driver education and perhaps driver re-education at some points as we go along the way. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No interruption. It's real. I do want to say that he comes to us as a highly qualified professional teacher, principal, central office administrator, having served in many, many roles in the school district, and most recently having served as a regional director. This is part of the team at DPI in which we use the leadership of our distinguished colleagues who serve in these director roles to share communications, to be very much a part of the problem solving that happens in every public school unit. So we can count on information accurately, uniformly going to our school leadership, and then presence of DPI hopefully in all of those areas. So very well versed in education, very committed to making certain that our children all have the benefits of what the Constitution put forth, which is a sound basic education. So we're certainly fortunate to have him join us today, and permanently, we hope. We look forward to that as well. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'll just take just a couple of minutes and kind of further introduce myself, and then I know you have some plans to have some discussion about sort of the way forward. New to the role, serving as Deputy State Superintendent for District and School Support Services for the department, but not new to the department. Spent the last 5 years, almost right at 5 years, in my previous role. And the previous many, many more working in school systems. I worked for Pitt County Schools, the Wake County Public School System, and Transylvania County Schools over my long run over the years. And yes, a distinguished commercial driver with a passenger endorsement and a school bus endorsement. Many, many, many miles over the years. But no, I'm happy to be joining this effort and kind of working with you. I know that certainly some big changes that you were not expecting to the driver ed program that happened last summer. Lots of things changed here and there over that course of that session. But we're sort of figuring out what is the best way forward, how to continue to provide the best we can and work with everybody that serves these needs in the field. Dr. Harvey didn't mention it, but I have a 14-year-old at home. So the time is nigh, right, for us, and thinking about what that looks like, and then thinking about too my own experience in driver education here in North Carolina as a student in Henderson County Public Schools many years ago, and just how that was a good firm foundation for me. So happy to listen, happy to help, and think about problem solving and how do we move forward and continue advocacy. I know Carl has some points that he'll make, and also just to know that these folks have been working, Dr. Harvey and Mr. Logan have been working for sure to go ahead and provide information, to educate, to share the stories, and to work on advocating. So advocacy is not just in a written letter, it is also part of your work, and these two have certainly been doing it very much, doing it very well to try to tell the story and say, you know, we want to be able to provide the best support to the field regardless, you know, of where they are in North Carolina to get the best information and education they can. And when you think about some of these pipeline issues, you talk about driver ed teachers, we're talking about everyone, right? You know, we're talking about a teacher of any sort, serving in any role or any staff member, bus drivers, custodians, you name it. And so making sure that we equip people with the tools to do their job so they can feel effective. And I think that's a big part. And I know the staff here at DPI, current and previous, put a lot of effort into that to make sure that those resources were available to the folks in the field doing that work. So happy to join the conversation and help move things along as best I can. Thanks.
Well, knowing that this, if I may, Cheryl, I still have the floor. If I may, what I'd like to do is encourage each of the agencies and to mention something that is your concern over the direction of the program. I will say this just very briefly is that there was a six-person staff here in 1992 when this program was taken from the course of study, general course of study. For about 30 years, the program was without leadership, 25, 30 years, without leadership, and it was all of the responsibility of administration shifted to the districts. There's 115 school districts. There's countless private, charter, and homeschools out there. I guess we're getting close to 1,500 just private and charter schools now. It's getting up there. And then we've got a number of homeschools. So driver education or traffic safety education is the one area where everybody needs to be pretty standard. And I'm sure my DMV partners will agree with that. We need to have one source of information. And that, but during that time, one of the statements that I use or phrases I used when I came here to DPI is I was this ranch hand that was hired to go get all the cattle back in the fence and patch up the fence because we were doing all kinds of things and there was no standardization out there. We were making significant headway. There were 3 studies done of the program. In 2010, there was the OSBM study. Then there was the PED study, now GovOps, and then there was the assessment by our peers in 2015. They all produced very similar data and recommendations, and the staff, a champion at the General Assembly realized that we would not be able to be successful unless there was a staff at DPI to carry these things out. So they gave us the legislation and the funding to be able to do that. And now to get to this point and having that taken away, then that's kind of the area where we are now. Do we turn back the clock again 10 to 30 years of, and there's no standardization. It presents all types of situations. A few minutes ago when Ms. Faulkner with DMV was talking about the data from how to evaluate licensees from different ethnicities and socioeconomic areas. And I was actually looking at Ms. Vernelson, who was with Exceptional Children. Exceptional Children have been one of the biggest topics or the biggest needs of our teachers is how do we communicate, how do we provide some kind of triage to determine who we are talking to, and how do we educate, how do we get to those teens. And so I actually gave her name to the association, and she is a presenter at that association this coming up in April. So thank you for sharing with them out there. I know that they're going to be very glad to see you. Thank you so much for that. But just to open the floor up, I know this would be an opportunity for Mr. A. Haroon out there in Alamance. I know that you always will provide something, but here's an opportunity to talk directly to the state's Deputy State Superintendent, Dr. Gibbs. Anyone?
Hey, Carl.
Yes.
Buddy Hartley, Orange County. I guess this would be a good time to just thank Cindy and the rest of you for the curriculum that you have provided to us for going on 4 years now. And since we don't have it right now, I have looked all over for a curriculum that is anywhere near what we are using. And it's not found. Your curriculum is head and shoulders above AAA's, ATSIA's, COSTEX, anything that's out there. I'm going to just say, my teachers, parents, students enjoy that program and the course. So I'm going to say it's going to be a sin for that course and curriculum to die. But thank you all for what you've done so far.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, buddy.
Devin Tanner, NCDT SEA. I feel like driver education is a very important, part to the student of the GDL process. And I'm one to hate the word oversight, but in some areas, oversight is required, and I think GDL is the product of oversight for teachers, parents, and students to teach proper behaviors and give the students resources to be safe drivers. Driver education, being part of that, is also about oversight. We get them first before the parents get the opportunity to drive them. And even though it's only 30 hours of classroom and 6 hours of driving, the instructors, the teachers, are able to give the parents the proper resources to continue on for their 60 hours with those kids. You have professional drivers who are, have a pretty good idea after 6 hours of what the student really does need to work on, what they're decent at, but they can give those parents in writing those details to work toward. Having said that, oversight starts at the top, and this being a student-driven program, I know that as Carl has directed us over the years here, he's been very student priority. What is it with his funding? How does he use his funding to get the closest to the students? The STEP program is one of those things. Being able to fund instructors who directly work with our students and to train them properly so that they can give those resources to the students and parents. Just the ability for him to travel around the state, to observe, to train, to teach. He commutes here a few hours as well when he does come to the office. I just would hate to see that kind of oversight. And like the gentleman said earlier, I was looking for, we never got the digital curriculum, but we're very much looking forward to getting it. And the standardization of the program statewide, we'd all be on the same page with the curriculum. It's just very important, the oversight of this program, and Carl's office and the team that he had assembled was so pertinent to that.
Thank you, Devin. Would you mind, for the sake of those who may not be familiar with the organization that you represent, the North Carolina Driving Traffic Safety Education Association?
So Carl said that kind of fast. North Carolina Driver Traffic Safety Education Association. It's kind of a mouthful, but we are I'm on the board of an organization that provides oversight statewide to both school systems and private driving schools as well. If there's ever a matter before the state with regard to driver education, we have a legislative liaison who also helps us to speak with legislators to get our message out statewide about how important driver education is. We also put on a conference every April. We get about 300 to 350 teachers at a hotel in Clemens, North Carolina, which is right near Winston-Salem. And every year we have a great conference, great instruction from people all over the state to kind of allow us to know what the most recent trends are and what's going on around the state of North Carolina.
Thanks, Devin. While anyone may be getting loaded up to say something, you mentioned a few minutes ago about the parents handing information over to parents. I don't know if it was you or Buddy. Actually, the national standards has identified that parents are actually, and I said something that basically stated that parent-taught driver education was not as good as the professionals. Well, there is a place for the parents, and actually the parents are the missing link in this whole piece. However, the parents have to be educated as well. As Ms. Faulkner knows, that when they come to you, I hope I'm not going to get anyone in trouble from this, but I was told by the leadership there that when they have road tests, that the students actually pass the road test more frequently than drivers who should have been driving for a number of years. So that's been very good, but that's not consistent across the state. Where at one time there were parent nights or parent meetings where it was mandatory that you had to come in and speak or listen to an insurance agent or a DMV representative or whomever, but the parents are actually the missing link in this whole process. So thanks for reminding me of that.
And I agree with you, if I may, because, just some practical transparency here. When a teen comes back from the skill test, a percentage of the reason why they fail is because they said, my parent told me that I should do this, and my parent told me I should have did that. So that teen private parent supervisor guide is a booklet for the parents, but you're hitting the nail on the head there when you said they should be incorporated in some type of still information. But that supervisor to parent guide is a good resource that we push when we do issue permits or any other graduated license. I appreciate that.
Mr. Logan?
I just want to interject and just say, like everything else, I appreciate everything Carl's been doing. I'm in a lot of meetings with him, and since he lost his staff, he's doing quite a bit. And even when I have a quick question about something, he's usually in a meeting and always tries to make time to answer it. As far as the Canvas course, my daughter actually goes to Orange County Schools and went through it with Buddy and really, really learned a lot, appreciated it, thought it was a good program. I actually was in the background trying to listen, see if I can steal some stuff, but Buddy got mad at me. But I'll just say this. I want to give admiration to Carl as well, because and I hate to get political, I don't want to get political. Driver's ed seems to be of late a battle. And it's been like that for a while, I guess, with funding. I know we did get some extra funding last year, and that was a great thing. But, you know, years ago when I came on board, a car was $20,000. Now it's roughly $30,000. Recently, we talked about pay of our staff. I mean, you know, as much as we are short-staffed, if we're a little more funded, we could possibly offer some more incentives to people to come on board. I mean, nowadays you can work at Amazon for $25 an hour and be in a car with students who are at times not listening. So I'm hoping moving forward with it seems like we're all on the same page. And Devin, I appreciate everything you've said along with everyone else. I'm hoping that people start to listen, that this is an investment. And these kids, and I have a 15-ish now, which is, I have a 15-year-old daughter as well, who actually drove with Buddy. And just watching her drive and learning and seeing the stuff that he taught, I mean, it's pretty easy. It's hard to drive your daughter without a brake. And like I said, I'm so used to driving students with a brake. It's a lot easier. But she's done a great job because of all the things that she's learned in driver's ed, both in the class and behind the wheel. So, you know, as much as we joke around about me being a Yankee, in New York, we don't have the program like we have here. I mean, my mom never had a car. My grandparents never drove a day in their life. I just went and got my permit, and it was close your eyes and hope for the best. So, you know, our program down here is one of the best. People in other states come down here, have started driver's ed, you know, Michigan, New Jersey, Delaware, come down here, and parents say we do it 10 times better than they do it over there. So, you know, I just want to thank Carl for everything he's done and his administration staff, our former administration staff, I guess, who done so much for us.
Thank you, Chad.
Mr. Logan?
Yes.
Hear me? Yeah, this is Morris Hargrove down in Cumberland County.
How you doing there?
How you doing, sir? Just want to speak towards the STEP program. We, down in Cumberland County, yeah, I'm going on 2 years as a coordinator, two years in June. I kind of build on what Mr. McGirt and Mr. Getty left me the framework to this program. So we've just basically taken it to the next level. You know, down here, our motto is safety, accountability, visibility, and accountability. So basically, we have increased, we're driving and we're serving more kids than we ever have in Cumberland County. The morale is up. We've made some good changes to take this program to the next level. We've had 5 instructors to finish the mentoring program in this last cohort. We've had, I think, 4 teachers to come out of the cohort from the last cohort of the STEP program. So we're presently now getting these guys at practical hours and getting them trained to become instructors, so we can continue to serve students here in Cumberland County and get to that 80% of what we benchmarked for. So I just want to say thank you to Carl Logan and all he's doing, and the guys up at DPI, and thank you, and hopefully we continue to serve more kids down here, but we definitely gonna need more instructors. So the STEP program is vitally important to help us continue to do what we do down in Cumberland County. I just want to say thank you and appreciate all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove. I should have prefaced getting comments from everyone by not mentioning my name. It felt like I was running for election or something. But anyway, the staff that did provide a lot of support to the program, and they gave their insight and the expertise and to create the documents that we did with both curriculums. You'll see on the screen there that we've kind of divided this. This has been a question, and it was a question that was asked to us by I've been asked so many questions lately. I can't remember if it was a legislator or, but anyway, they want to know the breakdown of how much money did you actually spend going back out to the schools. We received approximately $600,000, and as you can see there, about half of it was spent on, if you add those together, it would be half of it was personnel, but half of the personnel actually served the schools directly. So it wasn't like that the agency was using $600,000 of the $31 million that the districts were receiving. It was actually trying to cut costs and create services that would aid the districts and actually reduce the amount of expenditures by the local districts. So lastly, what I'm going to do is just kind of tie this up, unless someone else has any questions while the Deputy State Superintendent is here, is that the process that we are,
Go ahead. No, just.
the process is, if you remember on the slide a few minutes ago, is that the Deputy State Superintendent, Dr. Gibbs, will take this to the superintendent, take the position statement that you provided to the state superintendent, and they will discuss the elements of it.
I think that's fair. I think, so I have the position statement that the group had constructed or co-created. It sounds like it was a large group effort.
The party.
The party, the strange party. But I have it, and I'm going to certainly meet with the state superintendent about and discuss the best way forward. I think the original thing the original plan of work or timeline that you had, and certainly I wasn't there at that time, but with a state board presentation in March is just not necessary at this point. It may be later, but of course the session starts later, and we actually have some different timelines than perhaps you had originally envisioned. And so I'm going to meet with Ms. Truitt and bring this information to her and kind of share with the way forward. Additionally, though, I think it's important to understand, like I referenced earlier, work and advocacy is already going on, right? And some great discussions that these two, Dr. Harvey and Mr. Logan, have had, building those relationships with members of the General Assembly, hearing those concerns, sharing concerns that have come from all across the state when people, they didn't get what they needed, or they didn't get what they were used to having, or they had a harder time accessing the information and the support that they needed. And so those stories certainly carry weight, and that's a part of the discussion. So I think that we are at a place where the statement is thoughtfully constructed. It certainly shares the concerns of this group, and it's good for me to go ahead and carry it to the state superintendent and determine kind of what's the best path of advocacy forward. There's no question that Mr. Logan and his staff have done great work in trying to support school systems as they do this work, and really beyond school systems, just everybody on the road, everybody that's even remotely connected to it, to our friend I-40 up and down. So definitely want to say thank you for everyone's advocacy. I think that we're at a point where we're starting to have those good conversations and to say, there were some unintended consequences to perhaps these changes that you made. And how do we think about that differently? It's not so much a legislative budgetary request. It is, this group is advocating that the General Assembly simply undo something they did based on my reading of that statement. So correcting something or just changing the course that they had. The funds are appropriated, they are there. They're included in the biennium budget. And so it's just continuing to have the conversations about what's the best way to accomplish that goal and to get to that outcome. So it looks a little bit different than perhaps what you had envisioned, because I think the standard wisdom was like, well, we do a PowerPoint in the state board and that's what happens. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, or may not be necessary to do that. If it is, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But otherwise, I think we have something underway. We are putting together a good plan, and I think that these folks can speak with quite a bit of credulity about these are the services and things that we can provide, only if we have the staff and the funding to do it. And that's the reality. So I really appreciate being able to join the conversation today. I do think it's important, not just because I have a 14-year-old, but because we're all in this together. And the schoolhouse is remarkable in that everybody comes through at some point. And like you even mentioned, in this case, you're talking about, and I was a high school principal, and I had homeschool students that came onto my campus to enjoy, to join those things. So I totally understand that, and local charter schools as well. So thinking about what does that look like, and how do we make a way forward? So I appreciate the committee's work and that work group's work on that specific document. what can we do? We can continue to advocate, and those are positive, constructive conversations. Those are not attacks. Those are not tearing people down. That's just sharing. Hey, here's the reality. We think that we can do better if we had a better structure in place. By the way, we had that. And so let's go back to that, or something that's like that, or maybe something we haven't even thought of. But we are certainly seeing the consequences of some of those changes, and how can we advocate for a better way forward. So my thanks to Carl and everybody who did work with him, who is still pitching in, and so on and so forth, and Dr. Harvey and her leadership overseeing a huge swath of the Department of Public Instruction herself. So we're very appreciative of that. And so again, I'm glad to be able to join your discussion a little bit today and hear your perspectives firsthand. But I can tell you I've learned a whole lot about driver's ed in the last month from my two colleagues here, that's for sure. I knew a lot about transportation, so Mr. Harrison, he'll get his chance to remediate me, but these two I've been dealing with quite a bit. So thank you, and thanks for allowing me to join you today.
Thank you.
Dr. Gibbs, thank you. It's clear by your comments that you have heard the passion and the compassion in the group, online and here. We can't help but acknowledge these two and all that they've done and all their support. And I mean, even from the first day that I met them both, it's like you talked, one of the, I think Terry was talking about how he was coerced into participating. You can't help but fall for the enthusiasm and the interest and wanting to be part of this group, wanting to be a partner with everybody here to bring to the table education to the students. And you're right. I mean, there are so many levels of this, and anybody that's a road user is clearly going to be part of this process. Knowing how important the stability, the continuity that we've had, and knowing the obstacles that they've overcome in this short period of time. And sometimes it's just a matter of re-educating others that might not know. And we clearly feel, and I'm speaking for everybody, that you got it, you have it, you understand what we're talking about. And regardless of a child in this program, your background, your education, your expertise and skill set lends itself to understanding all of this, and we thank you for all of this. You do have a copy of the proposal. You have all the information. There's no doubt that these two and anybody here that if you have a question, we'll be on the ready to present and help. You just guide us, direct us, tell us what we need to do, and we will be there for you. And we will continue on as we have been to do all the good things that we know, because everywhere I go for a conference, North Carolina is always number one. And when it comes to education, we're always at the top of the heap. And so, love to travel when that occurs.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm happy to help, and I'm optimistic that we can build some solutions and make some progress. I don't pretend to predict the future, and I don't have a crystal ball. So there's always that disclaimer. But we're going to work hard to try to advocate on lots of different levels to make sure that we can provide the support the school folks that are serving in the schools can do their job. We want to equip them with the tools they need. And right now, they may not have all the tools they need as a result of some of these changes. So we'll work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're asking just that. So thank you very much. Dr. Harvey, thank you for always being here, to being part of this discussion. And certainly, Carl, we thank you for your leadership and all that you're doing to make things move forward. So,
Thank you, Dr. Leonard.
with that, if there are no more comments, we will identify a couple of things that are coming up within North Carolina. One is the weekend, actually outside of North Carolina, Williamsburg, Virginia, the Southeast Regional of the ADTSEA, which I will always say North Carolina's got a wonderful chapter of this, but the American Driver and Traffic Education, Safety Education Association is going to meet, and that is this coming weekend? Is anybody planning to be there? You are? Great, wonderful. And then we have the North Carolina Traffic Safety Conference and Expo that will be April 23rd to the 25th, and that'll be in Greenville, North Carolina, and that's sponsored by the Governor's Highway Safety and many other partners that we have in North Carolina that deals with traffic safety enforcement. And we have a couple of speakers that will be talking about driver's education as well. The North Carolina Driver and Traffic Safety Education Association will have their 54th annual, and I think Bevan has already talked about this, and that's April 25th through the 27th. Sherry, you're going to be speaking at that. I believe I'll be speaking at that as well.
I forgot, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're going to be speaking at that, so
I forgot that too.
we're looking forward to that. I need to get a helicopter though to get from Greenville to Clemens. Anybody has one of those with partnership and all that good stuff? Yeah. If not, I'll be driving the speed limit. Not 5 over.
I stand rebuked.
Yes, yes. Driving education, professional funds may be used for an attendance. You talk about committee members, advisors, and staff for preparation for the discussion. Remind committee members, our next monthly meeting is scheduled for May the 21st from 10 to 12. And that'll be here at the State Board room. And if there are no other discussion, anybody else have any meetings or anything that they'd like to highlight today or upcoming? Okay.
Just a quick thank you again for Cindy stepping in here this morning.
I was just
I'm sorry.
saying that. We are very appreciative of your assistance, more than you could ever imagine. So thank you. We done? All right. So now, if I could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
David Tanner,
Okay, and a second.
Kevin Harrison.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And so majority will ask you, okay, aye?
There seems to be no opposition.
No opposition.
The ayes have it.
And we're actually giving you back 4 minutes of your day. So thank you all very much for coming. We appreciate your enthusiasm and participation. And if you have any questions or anything that you think can add to, feel free to call Carl or myself. And we look forward to seeing you in May. Thank you. Drive safe.
Thank you.
There's somebody from technology that so are they
Because that,
Because we try to navigate
all the
and do
time.
that, and that does not work well.
Yeah, this room isn't set up all that great, just by its obvious purpose. Well, I think are we off now? Are we also looking at?
Cindy, we all, yes.
I think that, this is one of those spaces where, there was so much uncertainty as to what would happen.
Oh,
with this
yeah,
building,
yeah.
And
So,
there's discussion about the
self-driving
other building.
technology, those types of things. And we're seeing
We are
that especially
slated
in
to
the western
move
part of our
over to this other building, but
which is more
the old one is still standing there.
more of those
You know,
Teslas,
so,
things like
You
that.
wonder,
electric
will it be
vehicles.
in your room?
yeah, I mean, I think, as with anything construction, it could certainly take a lot longer than they thought. And so, I don't know,
But we are
you know,
teaching,
funds are what they
we are
are, and then
getting
if there-
into teaching.
There was at one point a discussion about building a boardroom.
Cars are starting to
Boardroom
be capable
on
of.
the first floor in what used to be a cafeteria on the next floor. With the thought process of we were at one point going to collapse it and have much less space in this building when that John Street building closed, and then that maybe didn't pan out. However,
Rotate through.
I thought maybe they would continue with that because as far as visitors coming to a meeting, it's much better to just come right in and be on the full street level. So who knows what they're going to do.
All of the
Well,
new
there
cars
is a
are coming
building in
with some
Greenville
safety
Parkway
features
that
where
is
our older vehicles. So
beside
now the
us,
students are getting
which is
to understand,
huge.
okay, this is what it feels like when the car pulls you back in your
We
lane.
are parallel to that.
It's gonna
We
beep
have
at you if you're
probably
going to the
600,
side.
I don't know what kind of
If you're not
staff
paying
you all
attention and
have.
you're coming up on
But,
something, it may actually even
Not
be
that
a
much,
break.
we're smaller than
So
what
we are getting more
smaller
into
than
some
what
of
we
the
have in
safety, the auto safety features. But with regard
I
to
think the total
auto
FTE
driving,
is around
we don't
1,300. There's
have
some
any
other
experience
contract
with
people
that
that are
too.
more than
We can
that.
talk about it, but
Probably
there isn't any experience.
fairly, almost half-ish are completely field-based, they don't report to, I mean, they
Yeah.
work in school districts.
And the residents, that's tremendous.
Yeah, and I think they count in that, but they won't beyond the,
But I think even state employees now, because some come to work, some, they're hybrid.
yeah, and a different space.
Yeah, yes, yes. And it really is interesting. I mean, even in our students, that's what much of that's
We
been going
gave
on in
out,
our
what,
class
1,400?
as
I gave you 10 boxes, so it'll be 1,200.
It's 1,200 left.
No, there should be 8,000 left, because we got 9,200 and now we gave you 1,200.
Right.
Oh, boxes?
It was a pallet.
Yeah,
Crash
yeah,
repair.
so whatever 8,000 is in the 120.
Way we
So,
Not ready to drive this.
All right, I'll join you.
well. That's a
so
pleasure
probably
meeting
about
you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for
70 boxes.
Yes, appreciate it very much.
How many is there? 14 every car manufactured by that point was supposed to try to have a backup plan. And when I started purchasing, 14 years after that, the
Have
payment
our
that
EC director Spring Institute coming up,
stayed.
where if we needed to leverage, if we could leverage that meeting
We had a
to get the boxes there, and then the EC directors
with
could
the
pick
rest
up
of our field
however many
vision, what they're
boxes
saying.
they have, and then take them back to their district.
Right.
Because
Same with
every car
mailing,
from here
you
on
could
out,
get an enterprise van, load up
They're- and
everything
they're
in
either
there, and
gonna
just
use
bring
it,
it to the,
to
we're at the
back
Quarry
up
Center in
completely.
Greensboro.
If we don't teach them how to use it as
And
part of
then,
it.
if somebody was there
So
to
that
check
is
off the
the-
list, that they could,
one of the
so it's an,
now
it's an option, I would say, if that's something y'all wanna consider, is just to reach back out to Carol Ann or me, and then I can, and we can see if that's something that is doable.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
We distribute things.
That's a good idea. Anything to get them into the hands of the district, because they're just sitting there collecting dust at this moment, so.
Another thing is. it's
Thank
not
you.
even
or we
automated
could even
driving,
get our,
but
because
programs
all of our
that's
staff
coming in the car
is gonna be there
that's
too.
assisting with some of the
And
driving
so,
functions.
If
That
more
was
staff.
we could get our
something
staff
We've got
to
3
load up a
field
couple
consultants
boxes and
and a
take it to
few
a district on their way home or whatever.
Yeah.
So, we have a lot of
Whatever
staff
car they
in
get
our
into.
We go.
Absolutely.
We have over 100.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
That's gotta be so,
Just throwing
just
that out there.
frustrating
Yeah.
with the different technology.
Yeah, thank
got a
you.
list of
Have a
those.
good day.
Yeah.
I have, I've got
Yeah.
a Chevy Equinox, and it has the automatic braking, but you can go into the settings and set how sensitive that's gonna be. So,
Right.
one person's car might be set to the very mildest, whereas another might be coming on and it starts braking,
Yes.
way too early or way too late. or
Dr.
whatever.
Cheryl?
And we don't want the student to become,
How did he get?
like, oh, it's
Oh,
gonna break for me,
Yeah,
I know you can do it.
exactly, depending on
I
how
haven't
many
read
safety
his old one.
features still not.
Earl had put the
That's
other
right.
one there.
We're just using what Earl put in there. I
It's
didn't know there was a
happening
difference, so I was
now,
just clicking.
You know, we have
We had
a-
one PowerPoint.
actually a
Yeah,
skill
there was-
testing
should've been two.
check group.
Yeah, he just had one. That's whenever you gave me that flash drive, he was already done talking, so I was like,
Okay,
okay.
what you're seeing.
No, and it didn't take, and
It was just a
the
few
one that
slides.
he had 16 slides.
To put in
That
your
would
car,
have been another
you know,
30
in
minutes. So,
certain.
no, I think we did well. I think things
brands
happen for a
of
reason.
ours.
It's all good.
For
Thanks,
money.
Earl.
So they have, so they
Thanks so much, Cindy, again.
make it
So
a base,
we'll see,
like the rear view mirror. That's what's
we'll
happening.
see you at the restaurant here in a few minutes.
I guess we
Yes,
can call them.
I have to make one phone call because I
upgraded
never get a phone
package.
call
You
from the
remember when,
office saying, please call me as soon as you can.
5-6 years ago,
That I know,
they had the
I don't
little
like,
backup
see my
camera,
boss
but
is
it was
in
in the rear view
Iran.
mirror, so you're still looking at the rear view mirror, and then in your peripheral,
Honduras,
you had the little
yes.
camera.
That's where
Apparently
he's
that wasn't
at.
big enough, I guess.
Exactly.
And now you've got
That
two
was nice
screens in
reward.
front of these Teslas.
The whole, yeah. I was,
She's
I
so
actually was an examiner at one point.
Gentlemen,
I was an examiner.
thank you for coming.
Mecklenburg County, in Mecklenburg County.
Brunswick County. Awesome place.
Brunswick.
I love it out there. Maybe I'll go down there this weekend.
I'm going, actually down there this afternoon.
You're going to
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
We've talked
we'll get some in the chat. Can you-
Lots going on. Hopefully
Most of
we'll
the
be able
tires
to help.
in the truck, when they have the real big tires.
The,
Or,
there's a need for a contract
Charlotte
template
area,
that everybody
they may
uses.
come in there and
You know,
and that's their
these are
car.
things you
Like,
must
this is
have,
your
these are things
car.
we recommend.
And the parents
And
are
it
going in
gives you flexibility to do whatever you gotta do because you've got your, whatever services that you have to provide. That's something that we just work out with all of it.
It's insane.
There's a lot of things that are missing. There are a number
So we're
of contract
looking at
people around
how
for a
we
long time
changing the strip to a
That's
that
interesting.
when they
Um,
took the
You
contract,
brought up the,
it was assumed that the
is there a
school system
difference in
checked the
training
box
or whatever
and then
between the house
they
and
push it
house?
away.
It's essentially-
And then you're
And
left
so the eastern
holding
part
back,
of our
trying to do
here,
everything. And
is,
there was
I
no
would say,
support
the,
from the school system.
less of Phillips
It's like,
Park
when
and
you
western
sign
part.
that contract, you
north.
become part of the staff.
As you go further east,
And your,
so
and
we
your
actually
teachers
have
are
a
staff members,
waiver of the
and they should have the same kind of
$65
training
for
that
kids
the
that are figured
other
as well.
teachers are getting.
And a lot of, so a lot of
There's
those kids at like
legalities
East
involved
Wake or
dealing with
Dale
kids
or
being in and out.
Southeast Raleigh High Schools,
You know, and so
a lot
that's
of those
not,
kids, most of those kids
that
take
wasn't, that's
advantage
not
of that.
understood by the
They do.
contractors who've been
But
around.
what we found is
Yeah, that's a big problem
the kids
for
wanna
us.
take driver's ed.
And,
Parents
we've
find
been
out
able
we
to
can do
dodge
it
a lot of bullets,
great, let's go.
because of that. But
well,
the districts need to understand that
for my
it's
kids
still a
to drive,
program.
I can't afford the
I just
gas
hired a
for the
staff
drive
over
and
here,
then pull.
and it's like, okay, some staff can be
To me,
very
that's
busy,
the worst thing to do. And it's not because of the
running the
instruction,
whole administration
it's
stuff.
because
You know, because,
if I
you know,
let the kid take
out of the money
driver's
that you
ed,
get, you
my-
can't hire
my kid might
full-time
think
staff
I'm gonna allow him to drive.
that work in
And
the
they don't
school
want
system.
that. And
It's
to
like,
me, that's the worst.
I had no idea
That's
there
where
was,
I'm trying to figure out how to
the
educate
benefits,
parents
the
to combat
benefits
that type of
were so
attitude.
much for a full-time employee.
Like I completely
Golly,
understand that your kids
it's not
can
another
wait
half person.
to drive
It's
to
a lot of
work
money,
because the
you know,
insurance is so
when you
expensive.
consider all
I get
that,
that.
so. But anyway,
Heavens to Betsy, please
let's start
let
breaking
them
it
come
down.
to us. They'll get that 6
All this
hours of
expensive.
free driving in 30 hours.
So anyway, so
And get a feel for the car.
we're heading that way.
You know?
If I can get my
That is a good point.
right and left hand
But anyway,
person
so
there
there
back,
are little subtle differences
Yeah.
like that.
she's still saving my
Yeah, the fatality.
tush. Yeah, we got
Then
a,
you drive to this
Cindy,
place?
I recognize you, I saw y'all on camera before, so I was like,
yes,
guys.
it's right down to the end of this thing where the road comes back into P Street. It's just on the left.
You know, honestly, most crashes come down to.
Where'd you park in
Yeah, you've been
front?
there, Brunswick last year, right, because Molly left,
But
what,
so
June 30th?
Spans all
I go
roads,
up to
spans
P
all
Street, take a left,
You
and
know,
then
it
make a
doesn't
right,
matter.
back to the right.
You know, the kid
What's
drives
y'all's backlog
Chinese,
right now,
you know,
now?
on the right.
Is it clear, it's like you were going to, what's the name of it?
She really struggles,
Get in
and
a collision when they're
Dad
speeding.
we tried, we put so many people in our
I think I know where it is. It's like I would be going to the old Seaboard thing.
And you know, they got the select of candidates.
Yeah, I do,
Outside,
I felt
that's,
sorry.
She was the sweetest lady.
Yeah.
their tax, they're driving up the.
What time are you meeting today?
12:30.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you got
Our
some,
car was
that's
our
a growing
communication
population out there
to
in
our
Brunswick.
friends. That was our link to our friends.
Right.
It's going
Now they
crazy.
don't communicate that way. And so they don't feel like they
Do we need to take a road trip?
or they just
Sorry?
on their phone.
Do we need to take a road trip?
Everybody wants to.
Anyways, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
I think we could have a meeting in Brunswick.
Oh, yeah.
Look,
Sounds like it should.
They've got some good space
Yeah.
in the meeting.
Maybe a retreat.
yes, yeah. The meeting
Next
has
advisory
been-
committee in May, let's.
You know, 1 of 4 can be in another place in the state, actually.
Yeah, I'm visual.
Look at God.
I'm just staff. I'm just staff.
All right, Cheryl, make the call.
I set the meetings up wherever the, like, okay.
Just go. Okay, are you gonna drive over there? Or do you want me to go get my car?
You're all caught up and everything.
Where are you at? Are you in the,
I'm
at
parking
Bargain
there.
Deck?
Yeah.
I was just saying.
I can go get my car, downstairs.
Yeah, you're second.
Do that if Cheryl's gonna go.
Huh?
How far are you parking?
I'm in 35, it's like 2 blocks over.
I have to see it.
But I'm gonna move my car anyway, so it doesn't
And then
matter.
I can come back.
That way we have one car over there and not
everyone up
multiple.
and say, okay, how does truly
You know the
connect,
parking over
and
there is
then I can
local.
bring that to the break. Turn it off.
Oh, I gotta take my computer downstairs
For what?
to get it imaged.
Do you have an appointment?
Yeah, it was this morning.
It takes an hour and a half.
I keep
That's about how
them
long
here.
it was. Let me run down here real quick.
Well, that's my floor.
Is it?
Yep, let's go.
Show it where it is. So,
I'll give you the tour of the third floor. That right? Is this your son or Devin's?
that's last.
Oh, wait.
I'll put it on your plan.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. Be careful going back.
I knew you were instantly, whenever I heard your voice, I was like, that's Tanya.
Yeah,
I heard you
that's
talk
why I
on
say
so many
the
voices.
meetings. So I walked in and I heard Carl, I said, who's Carl?
Say something, say something.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Nice meeting you.
Great working with you. Look forward to continue that.
Yes.
And we've got Terry back in town.
Yes. Yes, he's a great.
He's been riding a motorcycle for a couple of years.
Yeah,
He's a big platform. All right.
Bye, be safe.
Cheryl, you gonna meet us over there?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Okay. It's not 12:30.
No, but you gotta drop off your laptop.
Yeah, we'll do that.
It's 12 to, so.
this side of the county, and 3 over to that side of the county. That kind of deal. And we really need help out on the west side where it's more fluid. You know, we're just, yeah, Morrisville, Green Hill Creek, Level, and Panther Creek. So, yeah, they're, you know, and those are the kids that also, in the parents can afford to take $600 for 6 hours.
No, we just thought we just kind of let them sit and visit with you and see what the things are, and just kind of, you know, help us to understand, and, you know, it's not.
Let me give you my cell phone number, and we can further discuss this. I know, I'm sure Benson would love to get a foothold in the county public schools and whatnot, but I just wanted to be transparent and kind of give you an idea of how we were contracted, you know, forever.
Share the board, we appreciate that.
Our biggest thing is just giving as much value to the students as possible. That's not, if you look at our, Google reviews say a lot, and if you look at our 500 or 600, and they're all 5 stars. We get parents stop at the parking lot and say, hey, I taught my kid a year ago, and she's a better driver. That's awesome. So we want to provide that to as many people as we can. I know people who can't afford to go through private, and it's a lot easier for them to just go through public. So if we can offer that same value to people who can afford to go through private, then that's something that
And
we
it's, just so you know, we have plenty of business, it's not that we're trying to, but if you go to our website and read my background, I'm actually a retired cop, I'm retired.
Oh, I have read your
I'm
background.
a collision reconstructionist, fatality investigator, so it's more than just the money, I mean, it's, you know, it's where our passion is, it's what, you know, we're very selective in who I bring on my team, we're very selective. And so, you know, things like that, we're more community-based, and we're not just, I use the term like, we're not here just hitting, we're not doing that, we're trying to make a difference, because my family's on the road.
That's awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
your family,
I
stuff like that.
had one that just got out of level 2 like last week.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, just because you're driving with your kid, and then now she's on her own, it doesn't make it any easier to let her go. You know, on her own. So, you know, trust me, I know the feeling. Yeah, no, I mean, it's worth at least the conversation.
Yeah.
And are you? So you're based in Brunswick County,
No,
or
Benson.
Or Benson?
Yeah.
all right. Sorry, intersection 40-95.
Yeah, we just happened to Brunswick County, when they were looking for somebody to replace the past program, they came to us, so we took our program up to the beach, and we got a contract with them, but we are looking to expand more locally, but you guys being the largest, obviously.
Yeah. Hey, you don't have to answer this. Can you give me an idea of what you're getting from Brunswick County?
It's, we get 400 behind the wheel, 250 in the classroom, so it's 650. But, again, we could talk.
Well,
And I know we got a
there's
careful
money,
contracts to put it out.
Yeah, there's probably money, well, so Jordan's getting about a third per student. Because of the volume of students that we're required to, you know, that was required by law to get every eligible student. We're funded by 9th grade, and so that's the funding that we get. And obviously, you know, as costs go up, of course, those costs have to go up. And I don't know that, you know, I already can tell you I can't do it commensurate to what Brunswick's doing with they're smaller.
Is that a third of that per student for the AMU that you have based on the allotment that you have?
Yes.
Or is that?
That's based on the allotment that I have. Yeah.
So are you guys
Now,
using the whole allotment every year, or?
well,
is that-
we're part of the reversions over, this year we're doing much better. However, we did raise our per student costs, this time around, you know, a little bit, but, you know, so we have about 80%, 75 to 80% of the students actually, that we're funded for, actually take driver ed. And that includes homeschool, private, you know, those ones. So with the other 15% of the funding, I'm able to resource classes shoot me a text, and that way I'll get you in my phone, and, you know, we'll follow up this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, just know when, where, lunch or whatever, what's happened to visit.
Yeah, so here's the other thing, the caveat, 100 kids a month, or could you do 100 kids a month after school hours? Because our kids, we don't, I don't advocate our kids taking time off. I know it's really the parents' choice and they're given that choice, and there's not really a whole lot principals can say about it, but principals call me, not all the time, but sometimes, saying, you know, parents checking this kid out for like three straight days, you know, that kind of thing. So, and I tell them, look, I understand, you know, that, we don't do that, but if a private driving school comes in and picks up the student and the parent gives you the correct documentation, there's not anything I can do about it. And, you know, I can't be pulled into that anyway. That's a principal's discretion.
So the thought was on that, I agree with that. But I like how you said, hang them up, because we will do that. We don't sign them out, we don't.
That's right. That's right.
That's a big no.
That's your responsibility, is just to the agreed time and place with the parent, and that's the contract between you and the parent. I get it.
So, down those numbers and.
So typically our contracts, our main contracts go, well, you know, Russell County, July 1st to June 30th. Okay.
This one, and then, with you guys' contracts, does it start in a year or start in 2 years?
So, it
Or is
starts,
it fair?
yeah, so it's a 1-year contract with the option to renew 2 renewal
That's,
years.
yeah, that's what I'm,
Yeah.
standard, but hearing that the allotments go out different ways in different districts, it's like, well, this.
Well, and just so you know, as a private driving school, that's one thing that Carl, here in the public side, is trying to do, is to standardize a contract template. So that it is, right, yeah. So, which, right, you know, I mean, I guess if I'm staying in my lane, which is Lake County, then, okay, who cares what everybody else does? But because I'm on this whole committee, and because I'm past president of the board, and I'm still on that board, the association board, I care about how, you know, some of these private driving schools are operating. They're not all, you know, standing like you guys.
Appreciate that.
And we know that.
We're aware.
Well, I've been very aware of Benson over the last year. I mean, you know, we see you guys all over the place, and, you know, we know that there's a good foothold, because, you know, we see you in our not our parking lots, in parking lots,
Right,
and,
right.
you know, and whatnot. So, you know, I completely understand, you know, where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, this is great. I just appreciate this. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I'm just closing the door, so yeah.
So I guess-
Give us a chance.
Yeah, no problem. I guess my one caveat then, you know, being over my district would be, you know, figure out how many kids you could do after school hours.
You guys don't have any restrictions as far as like Sundays and things?
No, 9 o'clock at night.
Well, that's DMV, yeah, it's in 5 to 9. and-
Right.
Right, some districts don't.
No, we're fine.
Yeah, some districts
You guys, have you heard of Optimus Driving School, by the way?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that guy just popped up on our radar because he's been putting signs on the campuses, but he's starting out at $299, which is a business introductory rate.
Right.
But anyway,
Yeah, so
just
he-
thought I'd let you know they're
so-
they're out of Garner.
Yeah, he used to drive for GPS,
Oh,
driving
okay.
school, and now he's just moved over
Cool.
out on his own.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Do you know him? Is he a good dude or?
I talked to him.
Okay.
I don't know him personally,
Excellent.
but I talked to him and I actually welcomed him to the business and stuff like that. We was
Great.
trying to be neighbors.
Yeah, that's great.
Try to is the key word. Some people don't want to be neighbors.
No, some people think that, other businesses or other people will call just to kind of test the waters and take advantage, that kind of thing.
I've always, in this industry, I tell the other companies, this is such a big pie right now. Anybody can have their own little piece.
Yeah.
We don't need animosity.
Yeah, no,
We
no.
don't get anything done that way. So.
There's enough out there that the competition is, it's just getting your name out there.
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I like hearing you saying that you see our cars everywhere. It's like,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That
Mhm.
we're getting noticed, so that's good.
That's good. All right, guys, sorry about that.
Appreciate you. You're good.
Thank you.